Jeanine Pirro and Donald Trump not taking too much crime on the street no more. They've said we're taking control. And they've taken, and well, they've put the federal stamp on the nation's capital's police, aiming to decrease crime in the nation's capital. Let's roll this video really fast before we get going.
Here with more, U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Judge Jeanine Pirro, friend of the program. Young punks. So you can't, a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kid shoots somebody. You can't do a thing. Somebody gets convicted of shooting something. They get probation and a lecture to go to college.
Yes, unfortunately, Sean, and it's good to see you again. That is my experience, and that is what the D.C. Council, which is passing the laws that pretty much control the district here. And the President Trump has rightfully declared an emergency crisis of crime and deployed the National Guard, the ATF, the DEA, the FBI, so that criminals know now that we see them, we are watching them, and we're going to make them accountable. But make no mistake, Sean, this is just the beginning. Today was, as the president called it, Liberation Day. But we are now in the process of bringing to the attention of law-abiding citizens, not just in D.C., but throughout the country, that we're not going to tolerate crime that is out of control in the nation's capital. This is the shining city on the hill that our forefathers talked about. This is the place where Ronald Reagan talked about looking up to. And in the end, it is an incredibly violent area. And, you know, whether crime is up or down, you know, they want to pat themselves on the back and say, gee, it's great. It's not as bad as it used to be. It is horrific. And the reason that press room today, and the president commented on it, was so packed is because those reporters in that room, and it was packed to the gills, experienced crime themselves. And some of the questions had to do with that very thing. We've got an area where criminals are emboldened for a variety of reasons. They know these young gangs, or as they're called here, crews, they know that if they're 14, 15, 16, or 17, they are below the age of criminal responsibility unless they commit the crime of murder, rape one, armed robbery, or burglary in the first degree. And that means if you shoot someone and they don't die, I don't even get the case as a prosecutor. And understand, I'm not just the federal prosecutor, I'm the local DA, so to speak, here for D.C. All of these cases go to family court, the 14 through 17-year-olds. And those cases go to family court, where the focus is rehabilitation. And they talk about ice cream socials and yoga. And even if they're 19 and I get them in my court and I get a conviction, go on a bus with an illegal gun, a bus that's full of people and a family, you take a gun and you shoot someone in the chest, we get the conviction, we take it all the way, the judge says, you know, I'm going to give you probation because the D.C. Council has given him that right. And so we've got to repeal these laws of the left-leaning D.C. Council, one member of whom I just indicted recently, and we've got to make this place safe for the people in the district. And it's not just because of the kid who worked for Doe's recently, who was mugged by 12 and 13-year-olds and 14 and 15-year-olds. It's not just because of the intern who got shot and caught and killed in the middle of crossfire in a decent area of D.C., or the intern who went out for McDonald's at 10:30 and who ends up getting shot, or the kids from the Israeli embassy who get shot and killed. I mean, this is a regular course of conduct. And unless and until we get our hands on them, and unless and until we have the ability to punish them, they are emboldened and they are laughing at us.
What about other cities, violent cities, Chicago and New York City and L.A. and other cities that have defund, dismantled, no bail laws?
Well, look, our murder rate is like 5 times at least higher than New York City. We've got one of the highest murder rates in the country. We were the 4th largest a couple years ago. It continues. And what we've got here are people that are not even making complaints about the quality of life crimes, whether it's shoplifting or damaging property or an attempt at a carjacking. They don't even call the police. We're not even seeing most of the crime that's occurring. And the clearance rate on homicides, Sean, is a joke. These cases are not being solved. And so the message is, if you want to commit a crime, do it in D.C., because they're not going to solve the case. Bring in someone younger to commit the crime, and we'll end up letting you go because the U.S. attorney can't get her hands on you. That's all going to change under President Trump. We're going to make D.C. safe, and we're going to make it beautiful again. And make no mistake, this president has a constitutional right to protect the people in this district and to make us safe. And until he came along, it was just going along and, oh, yeah, maybe it got a little better this year, but it's never good enough. It's never peaceful enough. And that's the problem with D.C. And these apologists who say, oh, we're not as bad as we used to be. Nonsense. It's time for us to get rid of crime and make criminals accountable. And that D.C. Council, those laws that they pass are absurd. They are defense-oriented, they are criminal-focused, and the criminals know it.
Judge Jeanine getting a little spicy, wouldn't you say, Aaron?
She is. She's all on the train for militarizing the police force and having Trump be the sheriff in Washington, D.C. is what it sounds like to me. Is that what it sounds like to you guys?
It sounds like the City Council of D.C. has not cared to solve any of their crime issues and has made it a breeding ground for the recruitment of young lives into these gangs to commit these violent crimes. And the gang leaders know that if they get a 12, 13, 14-year-old or up to 18-year-old to do the crime, that they're probably not going to be prosecuted because the city council has said, no, that's not what we're doing. And so they've made it easy to commit crime. You can basically murder anybody you want in D.C. And so long as it's not a politician, there's probably not going to be an investigation.
Do you agree with this?
We are specifically talking about D.C. right now, which I believe that the president has greater authority over than other cities in America. I'm not super researched on that, but I do believe that he has a higher degree of power over D.C. than he does other cities. Do I agree with sending federal authorities into cities that have crime problems where the politicians will not protect their people? That's a loaded question. And it's a loaded question because I think that there's probably a path forward that allows for federal involvement, but we can't get to the point of a Waco, Texas. And so I think that there is a pathway forward for federal enforcement, but I think we have to proceed with caution. I think that's the ultimate kind of answer that I have for you.
My issue, Jason, is as you were talking, the phrase insidious precedent came to my mind. Insidious precedent. The path to hell is paved with good intentions. So right now we have very low-hanging fruit. We have a crime problem in D.C. that everyone can agree is heinous. We want it to end. There's lawlessness. We have lawlessness throughout American cities, right? So now you have a situation where everybody's on board with let's stop this crime, problem, reaction, solution, Hegelian dialectic. So the problem part is there's huge crime wave in D.C. The reaction is we need to do something about it. Let's bring in the militarized police force because the optics is very palatable, right? We're going to bring in military to stop these criminal gangs. And then the solution, peace in the streets. So they're presenting the solution being a militarized police force.
Sounds like the plot for RoboCop, just without RoboCops.
And so I have a problem with that because this has always been the trajectory is for the concentration of power at a federal level and disregarding liberty and having a large centralized government.
Yeah, but with excessive crime, the regular people just living their life don't have much liberty because they just go to like a Mickey D's and they're getting mugged or shot or stabbed, going to their car, grabbing their keys or cell phone they left in it.
Yeah.
So there's a balance with it, I'll give you that. But if everybody's just running down all just shooting and stabbing and robbing everybody. There's not much liberty for you to have as just a regular person doing your regular stuff either in the other facet. 'Cause then you're letting it just go and violating everybody's liberties and rights and freedoms to just live their life and do their stuff.
Do you think that we need to differentiate this conversation with DC and other cities in America?
Well, you have to, because obviously the overarching context is different, because DC is treated differently from the other states because it has a unique legal standing. So that's my point about insidious precedent is we're taking low-hanging fruit. We're taking an easy example. It goes back to like the seatbelt laws. We wanted to establish an insidious precedent where federal government centralized power could seize your personal liberties. So they seized on the seatbelt issue because it was low-hanging fruit. Everybody agreed that it's a good idea to wear a seatbelt. The problem is we should never have government telling you how you should treat your own personal safety and how you should be concerned with regards to your own personal safety. It was always a privacy issue to never have the federal government tell you by the force of law that you have to do something in order to keep yourself safe. That's the reason why I'm opposed to seatbelt laws. Not because I think seatbelts are bad ideas. I think you're an idiot for not wearing a seatbelt, but the federal government should never force you to do so. So going back to the issue in DC is they're creating a precedent that it's okay to take a militarized federal law enforcement military unit to militarize the police under the command of the federal government to quell crime in an American city. That is an insidious precedent because it's well-meaning, like it's a good idea to stop crime. It's a good idea to wear your seatbelt. What's not a good idea is having the government do it. The government should not be telling me to wear my seatbelt. The federal government should not be enforcing law enforcement in communities.
But the local government shouldn't have let it get out of control like it did in the first place, and should
Yes.
have regulated it and actually been having a more of a meritocracy kind of thing.
Well,
Good people get good rewards, and bad people get bad rewards. The other thing too with it is you're acting like they're just going to be like, oh, they came in, they got rid of the crime, now they're just keeping this all here and curfews and nonsense, and everybody can't go out and have a potato after 10 p.m. or whatever. Yada, yada. We don't know any of that. But it's also the capital of the country, which should be the shining example of the most safest, nicest, prettiest, just glorious place to visit if it's in America, right? It should look very nice, very pretty, very social, real good community, nice, just morals, values, ethics. It should be just the most gorgeous place in America because it is one of the oldest places. It is the capital. It shouldn't be just overrun with trash and filth and meth heads and robbing and murdering and stealing and killing and raping. It should be the safest, nicest place, most gorgeous place in the country, honestly.
Yeah, I agree.
But the other thing too is a lot of the local stuff, they just don't care. They just, oh, well, let's rehabilitate somebody. You can't do that. Not all things are rehabilitatable or whatever you want to call it. I don't know the right.
So Congress has ultimate authority over DC. They have the right to. They have the veto power of DC
Who's
City
the mayor
Council.
there?
I don't know
Mayor
who
Quimby.
It's Mayor Quimby from the city. Hey, I am not corrupt. I had you like some clam chowder.
Fab chowder.
This is not money. This doesn't look like it's money.
It's Bowser.
Bowser
from Mario. It's just a big.
No, it's Muriel Bowser. Muriel
Is
Bowser.
that a boy or a girl? I can't
It's-
assume genders now.
It's a they them.
It's a girl.
Dang, she sounds
Supposedly.
hideous. Sounds like a
Looks
State
like.
Farm commercial.
But
She's in
so
transition.
here's the question,
What's-
right?
What's she doing?
Nothing. It's a
Or-
Democrat mayor. What do you expect?
Collecting gold.
We basically have a Democrat mayor who's very pissed off that churches can now endorse political candidates or pastors can endorse political candidates, which is a story for another time. So don't get into
What?
it yet.
I don't even know about this. Okay, cool.
We'll get into it. I
Oh, I'm ready
promise.
for it.
So if a city typically does not want to quell their crime issue or they need additional help, state police has every power and every right to step in. And on top of that, the governor can activate the state's National Guard.
National Guard. You can do sheriffs in county. Yada,
Thank you.
yada, yeah.
Now,
Thank you very much.
Now, the question becomes, so DC is a little bit different because obviously DC is not a part of any state.
The
It's
district.
its own individual
Like a country within a
state,
country, sort of.
which
Like-
is the way that it was designed. So
like the
that
American Vatican.
No state had ultimate power. So who orders? Because there's obviously Capitol Police who failed miserably during
Yeah.
time of, and ultimately their Congress has authority over what goes on. Now, when we talk about DC, it appears that once again there's a little bit more authority of the administration to take ownership in what's going on in DC. When we talk about other states, the question becomes, what do you do when you have a governor that fails to take care of the population of individuals that reside in his state, on top of the mayor failing to regard the safety of
Recall him and
the
get
American
somebody
public?
better that wants to take care of the constituents and the populace.
Well, so this is not a singular issue, as we like to say on this show. There's multiple
Lots of
spokes on the
spokes.
wheel. So what you have in a state like California is you have a census that was done, and this is another topic of conversation right now. I'm very glad that this became a topic of conversation because we've been having conversations about the census and the incorrect data for a long time. But you have a census that includes illegal immigrants that aren't voting, that has basically allowed California to continue to run as a Democrat stronghold, which if you take the illegals out of the picture and you redistrict California the way that it should be, the question is, do you still have a Democrat stronghold? Same with Colorado, same with half these states, same with Illinois, right? Illinois outside of Chicago is red. It's red.
Yeah.
Like Colorado.
It's red. And so if you were to redistrict Illinois and say, listen, Illinois, listen, you idiots that want to harbor Texas representatives, you no longer have 3 of these seats because, well, they're made up of all immigrants. So you need to
Dude, that
redistrict. You have
that
3 less
explains all
seats in
the-
Congress.
It does explain the flooding of illegal aliens. And
Now the question becomes, here's the interesting part. Because just because you pull a new census and you force states to redistrict for Congress, the question's still out whether or not states will be forced to use new census data for their state legislature. And I'm not entirely positive that the state legislatures of these states will have to be redistricted. The federal government could essentially force the redistricting of Congress, but I don't know if they can force the redistricting of the states at this time without the illegal immigrants. It's a very interesting conversation to have. But going back to, well, why can't you just recall the mayor of blah 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 or the governor of California? They've tried. It's not going to happen. If you look at a state
didn't they
like,
do that to Newsom and then he got voted back in or something? Right? Isn't that what happened?
I don't recall the full story,
thought they
but
called him and then he was like, "Oh," and then they voted for me on the list after the recall, and I was like,
yeah, there's some sketchy stuff going on over there. But like the state of Colorado, it's extreme. It would be extremely difficult to recall a governor given the laws for recalls because all the states have different.
We only
recall
got
laws.
another 19 months of that ding dong, anyways. Old Jerry Poller, so who cares? Let it run its course. But DC though, I mean, so the mayor just does nothing. Their city council does like nothing. Are those people paid? They got like payroll. They got like good high paying local government positions. What about their chief of police? What about their? Does DC have counties or is it just DC? So do they have a sheriff? Because you know a sheriff can arrest a mayor for not acting or doing illegal crap and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the sheriff is the ultimate law.
The sheriff is honestly the ultimate authority and power for like a thing because he can be like, "No, dude, I don't care if you are the mayor. You're going to the box."
I don't know if this is actually true.
Okay.
But what Brave gave me as DC City Council salary is $152,000.
That sit there and do nothing and go, "Oh, we should rehabilitate people that shoot people for no reason." I don't know. I think personally they need to go ahead and just get rid of the criminal element and go in there kind of, big old hammer and do it. And then maybe look at getting some better local government, and it should be the beacon of niceness. But I don't have pretty cities and areas because it's the capital. It should be just the best.
Yeah. Well, the whole DC thing has been weird.
But afterwards, they don't need to be keeping the extra like presence and all this stuff. No National Guards or any of that. But they need to be like, look, dude, you shoot somebody, you're going to the box, dude. No ifs, ands, or buts. Off to it.
So Washington, D.C. does not have a sheriff's office. As a federal district, it operates under a unique governmental structure where functions typically handled by a county sheriff are delegated to other agencies. The United States Marshal Service acts as the federal agency responsible for most court and civil processes, while the District of Columbia Protective Services Police Department handles many of the duties traditionally associated with the sheriff's office on behalf of the local government. For civil protection orders, Metropolitan Police Department serves the paperwork.
That's like
So-
being your own auditor, dude.
Yeah, it's like the Catholic version of purgatory. They're like they're not quite in heaven. No, I think the fact that we have this conversation without ever mentioning posse comitatus is crazy to me. So the Posse Comitatus Act makes it a felony for the U.S. Army, Air Force, or any militarized any military unit to be used to execute the laws domestically. And so this is illegal, constitutionally illegal, for there to be the military on the streets. It's called the Posse Comitatus Act.
There is no mention of military on the streets in D.C.
So what is the National Guard?
National Guard is the National Guard.
So
National Guard has jurisdiction in the United States.
Okay, I'm jumping and I'm leaping a little bit because this is the part that I left out. So remember earlier I talked about insidious precedent, having camouflaged military-looking people in the streets in U.S. cities enforcing the law and stopping crime is a dangerous precedent, because what it's doing is it's conditioning the American people to becoming comfortable with seeing U.S. military on the streets of our cities. And I think that's where we're going. I think this is the trajectory that we're going as a society.
You're leaping a little too far.
I may
I mean,
be.
if some state police force is wearing kind of camouflage, I don't really care about that.
If they were so concerned with crime, we wouldn't have allowed millions of illegals into this country. If we're so concerned with crime, our state legislatures wouldn't be like in California.
But that's the thing is they weren't concerned.
They're
And now you have an administration that is concerned. And so what does the administration that is concerned about the millions of illegals in this country do?
right, because if there's been one extreme for a very long period of time, it has to go to the other extreme to bring it back to the kind of peaceful middle ground of things.
And we're all getting fleeced and played, because this is exactly the false left-right paradigm. It's Hegelian dialectic. It's problem, reaction, solution. It's the Democrats come in and create the problem. The Republicans are the saviors and clean up the problem. It's this game that continually gets to get played. Sorry, I'm a little maybe nihilistic in my view of their intentions.
I don't disagree with you in a lot of contexts, but in terms of how do you solve that problem,
Pendulum's got to swing.
the pendulum is probably going to swing. We're going to see it continue to swing, I think, further, right? I think that the midterm elections will speak to the approval of the American people in a lot of respects. Do I think that the Republicans will potentially lose control of one of the houses? They very well could. If the census gets redone and redistricting ensues before next year, which I find hard to believe they're going to make that happen as quickly as they want, then we could see a pretty drastic change. I don't know how you solve this problem.
Well, didn't
When
she say on the thing like there was like people getting like mugged by like groups of like 12 and 13-year-olds and like just pulling guns on people, and they're just like, oh, whatever, I'm not 18, so it doesn't matter. I mean, that sounds insane.
So that
And
goes
DC
that
had-
goes back
She
to
said DC had a higher murder rate than New York.
yes.
New York, with a bigger population. Because what's DC's population? It's not that much. And those poor people, they don't get representatives. They don't get a lot of voting authority and anything going on with them.
Yeah, we don't need the National Guard in Washington, D.C. I'm just going to end it here because we can keep beating a dead horse. But Sheriff Arpaio or the president of El Salvador, Bukele, are great examples of how you enforce crime. You do it with a heavy hand. You go in there. You have a strong, unified force that's constitutionally appointed. In the case of Washington, D.C., obviously this, I think, is being politicized. I think this is being done by design. to create to create a precedent to having militarized police force. But stepping back, you follow the lead of Sheriff.
Mine is a militarized police force.
A
I'm really interested in. You say that a lot, so I'm
yeah,
curious.
no, that's a good question. So I would define a militarized police force as men and women wearing military uniforms, equipped with military weapons that are designed for the battlefield.
Military uniform, the dress one, some camouflage, some stuff with pockets on the side of the pants.
Uniforms that
something that buttons up with a collar on it that has
a uniform,
pouches in the sleeves.
a uniform that would be differentiated from a police officer or a person of law enforcement. Like when you look at a state patrol or you look at a
So what SWAT wears is a militarized police force.
Yes. So
even though they're SWAT to do a bunch of counter crazy insane things for a bunch of jerkos that are doing stuff they shouldn't do, you're like, heck no to SWAT.
No, I think that's so we're
I'm just asking.
Yeah, so that would be necessary. I think in a situation where you have
So you're fine with it when it's convenient and
Yes.
necessary, but when something else or something looks the way you don't like it, then you get a problem with it looking the way you don't like it to look.
I wouldn't characterize it that way, but the way I would characterize it is I'm okay with the SWAT doing SWAT style activity, but I'm not okay with having centralized government going in with their version of law enforcement to enforce local laws.
We are talking about DC once again,
Yes.
where there's a
Federal,
like it's one thing if we have this conversation about Los Angeles,
LA,
right?
Chicago.
Which we did have this conversation about Los Angeles quite in depth. The question becomes this, and I'll go back to this once again. If everybody that is before the federal government, which is a long, long, long list of individuals that have failed to do their job.
That's a very large list.
It's a long list. I mean, a super long list. You're talking city, county, state. Failed to do their job. And everybody within there failed to do their job.
Yes.
What role does the federal government have? That's the magic question that has to be answered is where does the federal government fit?
Yeah.
And how does the government force a local city, a local state to take control?
I think we just need to revisit the entire existence of Washington, D.C. and its entire legal structure. Like this whole thing of, Washington, D.C. is like the one, like they're not in the family. It's like the stepbrother that's not like fully accepted into the family. Like let's just adopt them. Like let's make them a state. Let's stop playing this game. I don't understand the purpose.
The whole design, and you have to go back to the very start of the country.
So it's purposeful.
It's purposeful.
Educate the listeners, because maybe there's other people listening that are not stupid, but uninformed like I am.
So it is very purposeful that the District of Columbia does not belong to a state because it does not give any state a greater power.
They didn't want power centralized in one state.
That's why Washington, D.C. is not part of a state. That's why Washington, D.C.
That's a lot of government and power in one thing, and they didn't want one place to be like, I'm the state because everybody's coming here. It was kind of...
So they're like the banker in Monopoly or the referee in the game. Kind of like this.
The referee, I'm just seeing people throwing those little flags in.
Yeah.
So originally, the very first capital was actually in Pennsylvania. Like that's where the first president's Oval Office was. That's where the first Congress met.
Fresh Prince is from Pennsylvania as
Pennsylvania's first
Correct.
place they found oil in the country.
So
Serious?
oil. The whole idea was that if one state has DC, number one, there's a fiscal element to it, but number two, it would have placed one state above all other states, and that's not what they wanted. They wanted the federal government to act independent from the states, because if you have this separation of state and federal government, but you have the federal government centralized in one state, it becomes really hard for that one state to be separate from the federal government. So once you cross the lines of DC into Virginia or Maryland, if Capitol Police were to do that, which they don't have jurisdiction there,
no.
Now you have a really legit argument about where the borders lie. But when you're talking about actual DC, that is the responsibility of the federal government. And it's the responsibility of Congress to determine how DC is managed and taken care of.
Should be the responsibility of the mayor and the city council doing the right thing and pursuing it because you can never make anything just totally safe, but
and I
be preventative in the matters you can be instead of just sitting there doing nothing.
So you did say something earlier that brings a whole lot of context to some of this stuff. And I think that the media and Twitter and X and everything else, the speed in which we get information, I think really does dictate what's happening in our legislative process because it's all a show, right? Would we have the same decisions being made today as we did back in, 1820?
Even in the
Given the
80s.
fact that there's not as many eyes on the process at all times and the speed of information isn't as quick, and the fact that you constantly have to break the news cycle. And so I think that we see a lot of very aggressive legislation, very aggressive dialogue, very aggressive situations because they're trying to break this news cycle and get in front of the American public at a rapid rate and basically dominate the news cycle with one party versus
Showboating
the
is
other.
what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that some of these issues definitely have to do with that.
We need less showboating and more love boating.
I just think it should just be they need to go in and just regulate on the real problems and then kind of get out of the way, and hopefully the city council's better the next run around, and hopefully the mayor's better the next run around instead of people that just sit there and kind of power trip doing nothing. Because that's what it appears to be to me. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that's what it looks like to me. There's local politicians that are just, a bunch of WWF characters sitting there and doing nothing but, oh, I'm the power and the authority, but they're not making anything better, and it's really costing the everyday citizen, the constituents that voted for them, it's costing them their safety and security and sovereignty and their personal, just authority to just live their lives. And nobody cares about it, so the Fed's coming in going, hey, look, let's start cleaning it up so these people can just go to get a Happy Meal, for crying out loud. So I see what you're saying with it. We don't need excessiveness and constant, but to clean up a problem, like I said, the pendulum was this way with just letting all the crap fly. It's got to go back the other way to get the stuff in a centralized area where it's just like, look, stop.
I get it.
And you have to remember that Jeanine Pirro is actually the prosecutor, the DA for the District of Columbia.
Yeah, actively.
Actively, that is her job.
Oh, really? So she's no longer at Fox. Okay, I didn't know this.
No, she was appointed as the
The,
U.S. attorney.
The U.S. Attorney of Washington, D.C.
If there's so many
She's the U.S. attorney, but the U.S. attorney is also the district attorney for Washington, D.C.
You know what was bugging me though too is like if they were just saying there's like so many of these like little kids like running around doing crime. Where's all the parents? Where's all the dads with the firm grip at?
So Jeanine Pirro is not overstepping her role in the office that she's called to do. That's what all U.S. attorneys have the jurisdiction over. She's not stepping out of her jurisdiction, which I think is kind of where.
What's the population in D.C.?
Like 700,000.
That's it. So it's just a little bit bigger than where we're at. It's really like the county population we have. That's insane.
I believe. Let me.
We should do a show in
That's
D.C.
nuts. That's the population, and they have that much problem with 700,000 people.
We can fly to D.C. direct from Colorado Springs.
We can?
Yeah.
For cheap?
For super cheap.
And just spend a day and be like, man, I got robbed at 3 McDonald's, 1 Burger King. I got a knife pulled on me at Jack in a Box. I didn't even know Jack in a Box existed.
So you have to remember that the borders of D.C. are not very large either, right? Like where they actually have jurisdiction. Oftentimes, if you think that you're in D.C., you're probably not, right? Like bordering D.C. is Bethesda and Chevy Chase and everything in Maryland, which has huge population.
I loved him
but isn't counted as part of D.C.
Chevy Chase's greatest movie is Christmas Vacation, by the way.
Chevy Chase is a great American hero.
I don't know about that. I think.
Speaking of great American heroes, did you guys hear what's happening in L.A.? So Karen Bass is dressed up as the Joker throughout this bus stops, freeway overpasses. There's this movement to remove Karen Bass.
Who's Karen Bass?
The mayor of Los Angeles. So she looks like Joaquin.
Like the...
No. They photoshopped her to look like the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix Joker.
Okay.
And they're putting her mug all over L.A. kind of as a silent protest of we're done with Karen Bass. Anyways, we were talking about DC Comics and DC characters.
DC comic book.
All right,
I thought
of Karen Bass.
Just needs more Batman and less Joker, and it'll be solved. Done.
Yeah.
Just out there punching people for not paying parking meters. You're like, no, dude, the guy robbing the guy. Who cares about parking meter or registration?
You're giving all the.
Then again, that's probably what's happened out there too. Because how many local governments don't really fight real crime? I mean, even out here where we're at, and they get like, oh my gosh, somebody's got window tint. Oh, it's registrations. That's the problem. And you're like, no, dude, the problem is the rob and the thief and the murder and the rape, and deal with the real crime, and then you can come back and deal with the small crap, okay?
The thievery.
Yeah, deal with the major stuff, because that's always my thing. I'm like, wow, cool. And there'll be like 4 cops pulling someone over with like expired registration, and you're all, yeah, you're just solving the crime out here, man. Jesus. It's probably a bunch of that kind of crap, because that seems to be what happens like everywhere now. Because even out here where we're at, I mean, this is just everywhere else now. It's minute stuff as they get all enforcement about,
They get their panties in a bunch.
But DC should be like the shining beacon of the country. It should just be the greatest place to visit, to see, to live. It should be the most attractive. It should be the most appealing. You should have a big desire as an American to be like, I need to go to my capital of my country, and I should feel safe and secure. I should be able to have the kids run around and look at things and want to take pictures and see all the monuments and all the history. So I think it should be just regulated on, and bring the freaking damn hammer against all the nonsense quick, fast, efficiently, and then hold the standard to that. Get better local officials that are elected, people that really care about the safety and sovereignty of its citizens, and then just run it from there. So I don't really see a lot of problem with it, as long as it's just in to get rid of the problem, make it better, and then kind of egress out and let it settle in a better light.
I love DC. It's one of my favorite cities. I've spent a ton of time there.
Didn't you just have a trip there like a few months back?
No, I haven't been in a while, but for a number of years, I was spending about 3 months out of the year in DC. Not for political reasons, actually for sport reasons. I was coaching, but I spent a lot of time in DC. I love this city.
Me too.
And I love the surrounding cities, and I think it's a really cool city to bring your family. Everything is pretty much free. You're not paying for each and every museum. The museums are free. There's a lot of really cool small museums.
Great restaurants.
Great restaurants. Lots of cigar smoking places. Same with outside of DC. It's just a huge capital. I mean, it was Virginia was a huge tobacco producing state for a long time, and actually still produces quite a bit of tobacco. So
you're a tobacco tourist.
I didn't go there for tobacco.
Tobacco
but,
tourist. They got the
I
finest restaurants. It's only the cleanest KFCs here in DC, boys and girls.
I can promise you, if I'm staying at a hotel, I know where the nearest cigar bar or cigar lounge is. I can promise you that. But this has been Spiritual Insurgency. Join us every day. God bless.
Peace.
One, it better be Venice.